It may look like a rock concert, but the coloured T-shirts give it away. It's an election rally, Philippine style. Throughout the country, presidential candidates are wooing voters for next month's election. On May 10, local, provincial and national elections will be held, all of them against a backdrop of astounding political violence which seems to be strangling politics in this nation. In the Philippines, despite happy appearances, election time is the deadliest time of all. On the island of Mindanao, electioneering for this man is a sombre task. Toto Mangudadatu is running for governor, a campaign that has already taken a high toll on him and his family. His wife has been murdered, and two of his sisters, and a couple of weeks ago an attempt was made to kidnap his 11-year-old daughter. He's still running.
Despite of the tragedy happens to my family, still continue my plan to serve the people of our province.
Do you think there's still a threat to you? Do you think there's a threat to you now?
Yeah.
Toto has been left with 8 kids aged from 1 to 17 and has adopted some of his dead sister's children as well.
Here's the picture of my wife. Yeah.
His wife and other relatives were massacred when he announced he was running in the upcoming elections for governor of the province of Maguindanao. They were killed on November 23, on their way to lodge Toto's candidacy papers in the capital. Witnesses, associates of the killers, were sending him live updates of what was happening to his family via SMS.
Texted us, and your wife was already dead, and it was beheaded by the culprits. I cried aloud. Yeah. It's so painful. I can't explain it well. It's so painful. My daughter.
What do you think of your dad running?
He's a brave man.
He certainly is a brave man, but do you think he's too brave?
Yes.
Gigi Mangudadatu was the main target, but 56 others in a convoy with her were killed as well. This atrocity was conducted by a private army belonging to the region's governor, and Al-Ampatuan Sr., a close ally of President Arroyo, who had ruled the area for a decade. No one had ever dared stand against him. The killers were led, the prosecution claims, by his son Unsay Ampatuan, the town's serving mayor who expected to inherit the governor's office from Daddy without any messy elections. For Junior, it was, after all, the family's only business. It was on this hillside in Maguindanao that Toto's wife, relatives and friends, all women, were slaughtered. 32 journalists who accompanied them to report on the filing of the electoral papers were executed beside them. President Arroyo has turned media shy since the massacre, but her spokesperson, Gary Oliver, sees the killing as nothing but an act of madness.
The killings were of course quite bizarre, but the more disturbing factor there to me is they must have thought they could get away with this. They believed they could do it, that they were friends with the president, the law had never come in and controlled them, that the police were under their control, they could do whatever they like.
Well, there's two possible reasons for this. One, of course, is momentary insanity, which I think may be in fact what the Ampatuans, certainly the son, who is primarily implicated here, may be pleading in his own defense. Or clearly a gross miscalculation of the extent of their influence in Manila.
Yes.
Because clearly this is not something that anyone could or should tolerate.
Yes.
So it was at the very best, okay, it was a gross lack of judgment on their part. And now they have to be held
Accountable. But, well, I'm just asking, though, I mean, on some level, do you feel accountable yourself? These people were being armed. Were you concerned that that clearly large amounts of government weapons
There's
were...
always going to be concern about arming, force extenders. Okay? Then it becomes clearly a management problem.
Were you concerned about that before the massacre?
There is no reason to believe that there was not a concern or that concern was not appropriate in a case like that.
Gloria Arroyo can't run for the presidency again. With just days left to serve, her legacy is now in danger of being remembered for little more than a startling number of political killings. Amnesty International maintain that there has been around 1,000 political executions during her presidency and unprecedented growth in the often brutal rule of private militias under the control of local politicians. The US State Department recently also expressed similar concerns and also noted the apparent climate of impunity that surrounds those crimes. The Maguindanao massacre was an extreme but not an isolated event. Local journalist Ferdy Cabrera would have been in the ill-fated convoy but was called to Manila on another job.
I can see the checkpoint now.
Today he has organised an army escort to take us up to the massacre site.
We were not assured of our safety anymore, so we asked the guidance now of the army to bring us.
It's a deadly business being a journalist here. This recent atrocity aside, 1 or 2 are executed in this region each year, and death threats are common.
Yeah, especially those handling critical issues. When they hit politicians, when they hit government officials, that's quite threatening.
We're retracing the journey that Toto's wife took to lodge his election papers, travelling in full daylight along the main highway when she hit this roadblock.
This is exactly the place, the checkpoint, where they were stopped. And there were a lot of them at the time. There were a lot of private armies, police, some according to their accounts, witness accounts. So this is the place.
But what I don't understand is, why did they stop? Was it private army or was it police that stopped them?
The way I understand that the private armies and the police
Were together?
most of them
were
were together.
So the local police were also involved?
Yes.
And I answered the phone. The voice was it was like a trembling voice, and she was afraid. Yeah.
And she said there's 100...
More than 100 people.
stopping on the road.
Yeah.
And Ampatuan Jr.
Unsay.
Unsay.
Yeah, Unsay approached me, slapped me. And that was the last word of my wife. And I attempted to call her, and the phone went off.
The convoy of 8 cars and minibuses were directed down this road. At a dead end at the top of the hill, they stopped beside 2 huge pits that had already been prepared for them.
This hole is the first batch of they dumped the first batch of killed persons, and then after that.
But this, so I'm clear, this hole was already dug.
Yeah, well, it was already dug before they were driven here.
They had a tractor up here or something. Did they backhoe?
Yeah, there's an excavator here waiting.
Seriously?
Yeah. 22 bodies that was found here on this side. Well, in this side, we could see, I think, 2 vehicles. Yeah, the vehicles. 2 vehicles that was
2 vehicles were buried?
Yeah.
They tried to bury the vehicles too?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
The digger worked furiously trying to bury bodies and the cars. So furiously, its engine burned out and the killers fled the scene. leaving behind 57 people shot, hacked and beaten to death with such ferocity it beggars belief, and the full video is too gruesome to show. An idea can be gleaned from a billboard that Toto Mangudadatu has erected next to his home.
She has 17 gunshot wounds and 4 lacerations. All in all, is 21. She was brutally killed. It was so barbaric. Yeah. And according to the NBI examination, the National Bureau of Investigation examination, the lacerations on the private part of my wife was before she was shot by the culprits.
Somewhere between 100 to 200 men were involved in the killing that occurred here. That's a lot of people to be overcome with temporary madness. It seems it wasn't just crazed men at work, but bureaucrats. Digging graves with equipment from the Public Works Department. Philippine National Police either participating or standing by while journalists and a group of innocent women were murdered. Killed, it's alleged, with army-issue weapons and ammunition. Local politics suddenly took on national significance. Maguindanao and the violence it represents has moved centre stage into the presidential election. 4 major figures are emerging in the campaign. The government's Gibo Teodoro, former Secretary of Defence, burdened with Arroyo's unpopularity but bolstered by a strong party and government machine. Billionaire businessman Manny Villar, a boy from the slums made good with an upbeat message that's playing well with both business and the poor. Noynoy Aquino, son of Cory Aquino, running on an anti-corruption platform and tapping into the waves of nostalgia for the stability of his mother's rule. And one wild card. Every crisis needs an action hero, and the current violence and turmoil is blowing a famous one in from the past. Joseph Estrada, movie star and former president, has taken nearly all the pundits by surprise by launching a campaign to reclaim the presidency. Estrada was ousted from power in 2001 by Gloria Arroyo. Imprisoned from 2001 to 2007 on charges of plunder, it's a bit awkward for him to maintain an anti-corruption platform.
Sino ang pinakagwapong naging presidente ng Pilipinas? Sino ang hinalikan ni Ayay de las Alas?
Although wobbly on corruption, Estrada has a credible trump card on law and order. And he has some showbiz shtick to boot.
Ngunit sa dinami-dami ng aking minahal, isa lamang ang babaeng aking pinakasalan.
But it wasn't these one-liners that surprisingly turned him into a contender. He was the first to state point blank that he would shut down the militias of local politicians.
Private armies will never exist because that is illegal per se. I'll dismantle them immediately. I will order the armed forces of the Philippines, the National Police, to arrest them and dismantle them immediately in my first hour in office.
Free lollies and t-shirts aside, Estrada has a credible track record on security issues and the imposition of national law. When he was president, Mindanao was being overrun by the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Estrada launched an all-out war on the MILF. The Filipino army smashed 46 rebel bases and re-established national rule throughout much of the province.
Today, our government and the MILF have agreed on a mutual cessation of hostilities.
His successor, Arroyo, entered into numerous ceasefires that never held. She reduced the role of the Philippines Army while empowering local allies like the Ampatuans as deputy sheriffs to fend off the MILF. It's a volatile electorate, but right now Noynoy Aquino appears to be the frontrunner. In a country racked with corruption allegations, Aquino is a clean skin. And for a nation shocked by the rise in political violence, Noynoy's own narrative of pain concerning his father's assassination is resonating.
Natipaw tayo, ang haba pa ho ng dinaanan natin. 23 tayo, bumalik kami sa Pilipinas para ilibing ang tatay. 27 po ko pinagbabaril noong kudeta ng 1987.
The election season kicked off on day one with the death of 57 in Maguindanao. It's estimated another 40 political killings have occurred since then, and the election is still not in full swing.
You're no stranger to political violence. Of course, your father was executed or assassinated here. Has anything changed since his death?
Well, yes, initially, but right now there seems to be an impunity. Look at the Maguindanao massacre that you were referring to. Most of us in this country have felt that nobody would even contemplate doing something like that. But here you have a warlord coddled by this administration, armed by this administration, given total reign over their fiefdom, and this is the logical outcome of having that particular policy. That warlord in particular used to travel with a 20-car convoy of fully armed men. I mean, how visible does it need to be for the state to take any concrete action?
At the entrance to the Ampatuan region, Gloria Arroyo still shares the limelight with Unsay Ampatuan, now in prison on murder charges, and his father, the governor, charged with conspiring in the massacre. Bloated on the government's money, they delivered literally unbelievable results for Arroyo in presidential elections. 100% of the vote on one rather awkward occasion. The region is still dirt poor, but out of the dust looms the personal palaces of the Ampatuans.
It's huge, it's new, it's beautiful.
Now, where's all this money coming from for all these new buildings?
Yeah, from the government.
I think you do have unhealthy concentrations of political power in certain parts of the country among certain politicians. And this, I would imagine, is one of the direct causes of the problem with private armies and the political violence that these groups can inflict on others.
What processes do you, as a government, have in place to address that, stop it, and bring it under control?
That is a good question of principle and something that I think is more appropriately and more authoritatively addressed by someone who's on top of the problem.
Wow. So we are in where?
In the compound of the Ampatuans.
This is Senior's compound, yeah?
At the Ampatuans' main palace, the Philippine Army and police are searching for more weapons. Officially, the Ampatuans were only meant to be issued arms while on patrol with the army. But digs in recent weeks have unearthed an extraordinary arsenal of weapons and ammunition. Some of it with some rather embarrassing fingerprints. Ampatuan Senior has a personal mosque conveniently located next to his home.
This is the one they dug here.
Today, the lawn outside of it has been dug up in the search for weapons.
Pang-pitong beses na ito.
And Rebecca Ampatuan is not happy.
next time, kung kukuha sila ng informer, hindi yung nasasayang ang pera nila. Sana yun na yung patayin nila, yung nagturo na wala namang nakikita.
Rebecca, sister of Unsai, daughter of the governor, knows nothing of the massacre. She was attending religious duties in Saudi Arabia when 57 people were being shot and hacked to death up the road.
Is the defence that they were not there at the killings? Did someone else do the killings of the journalists? And
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was not around during that incident. I was in Mecca.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Making Mecca. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Gibo Teodoro is the government's candidate for president. Until recently, he was Secretary of Defence, a position he held while the Amputuans were being secretly armed and enriched. A position he held until just 8 days before the Maguindanao massacre. In 2008, while he was Defence Secretary, the UN's Special Rapporteur for Human Rights alleged that the Philippine army was in a, quote, state of denial over its complicity in the rising number of extrajudicial executions in the Philippines. A state of denial he seems happy to maintain.
Do you take responsibility, though, for the growth of those private armies and the political violence? Why not?
No way.
Why not? They grew substantially
they did
over
not.
your period.
They did not. That is a disputable fact. They reduced during my time. They did not grow. And it was started as a policy probably a long, long time ago.
Well, with the when the Maguindanao massacre happened,
I was not the secretary anymore.
You were just not.
No,
only
that is disputable. You know, they can throw mud at me, but it won't stick.
It's not mud, sir. You were defence secretary.
Yes, yes, but that was a police problem too.
But what interests me, though, is there was a growth of a private army.
No, there was not. That's disputable.
Well, it's a massive...
Come up with the data.
Well, it's
come
a massive... Well, there's 3,000 armed men.
No. Come up with the actual data.
All right, the actual data is the killers were found with weapons from the army. And they were
not from the army.
From the police.
Only 34 firearms were from the armed forces.
34 firearms.
So we have to be very specific with the data.
If you empower people who aren't competent to accept that power, that's the outcome, isn't it?
Well, sometimes that's the outcome, naturally. But how could I sustain a disarmament in the face of 11,000 strong? MILF, separatism on the other side, communist rebels bombing people on the others, with only about 8 infantry battalions in the area. Impossible.
How will you do it if you become president?
Slowly, surely. I think the best thing to do is to ask all former defense secretaries of whatever political color, what did they do?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Whatever happens at the national level, Toto is pushing on in Maguindanao and has vowed to finish off the private armies and their patrons. If Toto beats the Ampatuans, their whole house of cards will tumble. And Toto probably will win, if he makes it to the election.
You might not make it to May 10.